Thank you. Well, I'm reading from this tome again. Joe called me and said, "Was there anything else that you could read in June? She must be desperate." From Nora. And I said, "Oh, are you kidding? There are like 600 more pages that I could read from." So I am reading today from Nora Ephron and her book, The Most of Nora Ephron. And I'm going to read about this section is called On Maintenance. And I apologize to you gentlemen because this is mostly about women's maintenance. Maybe you can learn something. I have been trying for weeks to write about maintenance, but it hasn't been easy. And for a simple reason, maintenance takes up so much of my life that I barely have time to sit down at the computer. You know what maintenance is, I'm sure. Maintenance is what they mean when they say, after a certain point, it's just patch, patch, patch. Maintenance is what you have to do just so you can walk out the door knowing that if you go to the market and bump into a guy who once rejected you, you don't have to hide behind a stack of canned food. I don't mean to be too literal about this. There are a couple of old boyfriends whom I always worry about bumping into, but there's no chance if I ever did, I wouldn't recognize them. On top of that, they live in other cities. But the point is that I still think about them every time I'm tempted to leave the house without eyeliner. There are two types of maintenance, of course. There's the status quo maintenance, the things that you have to do daily or weekly or monthly just to stay more or less even. And then there's maintenance that you do monthly or yearly or every couple of years or so. Maintenance I think of as pathetic attempts to turn back the clock. Into this category fall such things as facelifts, liposuction, Botox, major dental work, and removal of unsightly things such as varicose veins and skin tags, and those irritating little red spots that crop up all over your torso at a certain age for no reason at all. I'm not going to discuss these issues here. For now, I'm concentrating only on the routine, everyday things required just to keep you from looking like someone who no longer cares. So her first topic is hair. We began, I'm sorry to say, with hair. I'm sorry to say it because the amount of maintenance involving hair is genuinely overwhelming. Ain't that the truth? Sometimes I think that not having to worry about your hair anymore is the secret upside to death. Now tell the truth. Aren't you sick of your hair? Aren't you tired of washing and drying it? I know people who wash their hair every day, and I don't get it. Your hair doesn't need to be washed every day any more than your black pants have to be dry cleaned every time you wear them. But no one listens to me. It takes some of my friends an hour a day, 7 days a week, just to wash and blow dry their hair. How they manage to have any sort of life is a mystery to me. I mean, we're talking about 365 hours a year. That's 9 work weeks. Maybe this made sense when we were young, when the amount of time we spent making ourselves look good bore some correlation to the number of hours we were spending having sex, which was, after all, one of the reasons for our spending so much time on grooming. But now that we're older, whom are we kidding? On top of which, have you tried buying shampoo? I mean, good luck to you, Good luck finding anything that says on the label simply shampoo. There are shampoos for dry but oily hair, and shampoos for coarse but fine hair. And then there's the conditioners and the straighteners and the volumizers. How damaged does hair have to be to qualify as damaged? Why are some shampoos for blondes? Do the blondes get the better shampoos? It's totally dizzying. Shelf after shelf of products. Not one of them capable of doing the job alone. I deal with all this confusion by taking the draconian measures to reduce the amount of time I spend on my hair. I never do my own hair if I can help it. I try my best to avoid situations that would require me to. Ever so often, a rich friend asks me if I'd like to go on a trip involving a boat, and all I can think about is the misery of 5 days in a small cabin, struggling with a hair dryer. And I'm never going back to Africa. The last time I was there in 1972, there were no hairdressers out in the bush. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the end of that place. I'm in awe of women I know who have magical haircuts that require next to no maintenance. I envy all Asian women. I mean, have you ever seen an Asian woman whose hair looked bad? No, you haven't. Why is this? I once read an interview with a well known actress who said that the thing she was the proudest of was that she could blow dry her own hair. And I was depressed for days afterwards. I'm completely inept at blow drying my own hair. Oh, I have all the equipment and the products. I own blow dryers with special attachments, and hot rollers and Velcro rollers and gel and mousse and spray, but my hair looks absolutely awful if I do it myself. So, twice a week, I go to a beauty salon and have my hair blown dry. It's cheaper by far than psychoanalysis and much more uplifting. What's more, it takes much less time than washing and drying your own hair every single day, especially if, like me, you live in a large city where a good and reasonably priced hairdresser is just around the corner. Still, at the end of the year, I've spent at least 80 hours just keeping my hair clean and pressed. That's 2 work weeks. There's no telling what I could be doing with all that time. I could be on eBay, for instance, buying something that will turn out to be worth much less than what I bid for it. I could be reading good books. Of course, I could read good books while having my hair done, but I don't. I always mean to. I always take one with me when I go to the salon, but instead I end up reading the fashion magazines that are all lying around. And I mostly concentrate on articles about cosmetic and surgical procedures. Once I picked up a copy of Vogue while having my hair done, and it cost me $20,000. But you should see my teeth. Now we're going to talk about hair dye. And the reason I really am reading today is because when I read to myself this, when I was practicing for the last time, I laughed because I have dyed my hair or had highlights put in my hair since I was 26 years old. So Nora's mother said in the last reading, the last time I read, that if you slip on a banana peel and people see you and they laugh at you and that's their laugh, if you tell them that you slipped on a banana peel, then it's your story and your laugh. You're the hero. So I'm reading this next section because I'm the hero. Many years ago, when Gloria Steinem turned 40, somebody commented to her on how remarkably young she looked. And she replied, "This is what 40 looks like." It was a great line. I wish I'd said it. This is what 40 looks like. Well, that led inevitably to the most significant corollary. 40 is the new 30, which led to the many other corollaries. 50 is the new 40, 60 is the new 50, and even restaurants are the new theater, which led 60, excuse me, I've lost my place. Oh dear. 50 is the new 40, 60 is the new 50, and restaurants are the new theater. Focaccia is the new keys, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, here's the point. There's a reason why 40, 50, and 60 don't look the way they used to. And it's not because of feminism or better living through exercise. It's because of hair dye. In the 1950s, only 7% of American women dyed their hair. Today, there are parts of Manhattan and Los Angeles where there are no gray haired women at all. Once, some years ago, I went to Le Cirque, a well known New York restaurant, to a lunch in honor of a woman named Jean Harris. And a lot of you all will know who she is. I did. Who had just that week been released from 12 years in prison for murdering her diet doctor boyfriend. And she was the only woman in the restaurant with gray hair. Hair dye has changed everything, but it almost never gets the credit. It's the most powerful weapon older women have against the youth culture. And because it actually succeeds at stopping the clock, at least on your hair color, it makes women far more open to drastic procedures like facelifts. I can make a case that at least it's partly responsible for the number of women entering and managing to stay in the job market, for the number of women entering and for managing and staying in the job market and into late middle age, as well as for all sorts of fashion trends. For example, it's one of the reasons women don't wear hats anymore. And it's entirely the reason that everybody I know has a closet full of black clothes. Think about it. 50 years ago, women of a certain age almost never wore black. Black was for widows, especially for Italian war widows. And even Gloria Steinem might concede that the average Italian war widow made you believe that 60 was the new 75. If you had gray hair, black made you look not older, but sadder. But black looks great on older women with dark hair. So great, in fact, that even younger women with dark hair now wear black. Even blondes wear black. Even women in LA wear black. Most everyone wears black, except for anchor women, United States senators, and residents of Texas. And I feel really bad for them. I mean, black makes your life so much simpler. Everything matches, especially black. But back to hair dye. I began having my hair dyed about 15 years ago. And for many years, I was categorized by my colorist as a single process customer. Whatever was being done to me, which I honestly have no idea how to describe, did not involve peroxide and therefore took only 90 minutes every 6 weeks. Whenever I complained about how long it took, I was told that I was lucky. I wasn't blonde. Where hair dye is concerned, being blonde is practically a career. Oh, the poor blondes. They were sitting there at the colorist when I arrived, and they were still there when I left. Their scalps were sectioned off and dotted with little aluminum foil packets. They had to sit under the hair dryers. They complained bitterly about their dry and damaged hair and their chronic split ends. I felt superior to them in every way. For the first time in my life, it seemed there was an advantage to being a brunette. But then, about a year ago, my colorist gave me several highlights as a present. Highlights, you probably know, are little episodes of blindness that are scattered about your head. They involve peroxide. They extend the length of time involved in hair dyeing from unbearable to unendurable. As I sat in the chair, waiting for my highlights to sink in, I was bored witless. Hours passed. I couldn't imagine why I'd been conned into agreeing to this free trial. I vowed that I would never, ever even be tempted to have highlights again, much less pay money for them. They are, in addition to being time consuming, wildly expensive, naturally. But you will probably not be surprised to hear this. Those highlights were a little like the first sip of brandy Alexander that Lee Remick drank in the days of wine and roses. I emerged from Madison onto Madison Avenue with four tiny, virtually invisible blondish streaks in my hair, and was so thrilled and overwhelmed by the change in my appearance that I honestly thought that when I came home, my husband wouldn't recognize me. Well, as it happened, he didn't even notice I'd done anything to myself. But it didn't matter. From that moment on, I was hooked. As a result, my hair dyeing habit now takes at least 3 hours every 6 weeks or so. And because my hair colorist is, in her world, only slightly less famous than Hillary Clinton, it costs more per year than my first automobile. Now, Nora won numerous awards for her work, her writings, and most of them were in the movies. She wrote When Harry Met Sally and directed that with that wonderful scene that she probably won the Academy Award for. She won some Academy Awards too, but at heart, she was a journalist. So I'm going to read as my last little selection something that she wrote in 2003. And she won the Indies Choice Book Award for adult nonfiction for this piece. And it's called I Feel Bad About My Neck. And some of you have read it. I feel bad about my neck. Truly, I do. If you saw my neck, you might feel bad about it too. But you'd probably be too polite to let on. If I said something to you on the subject, something like, I absolutely can't stand my neck, you undoubtedly would respond by saying something nice like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you're lying, of course, but I forgive you. I tell lies like that all the time, mostly to friends who tell me they're upset because they have little pouches under their eyes, or jowls, or wrinkles, or flabs around the middle. And do I think they should have an eye job, or a facelift, or Botox, or liposuction? My experience is that I don't know what you're talking about is code for I see what you mean, but if you think you're going to trap me into engaging on this subject, you're crazy. It's dangerous to engage on such subjects. And we all know it because if I said, yes, I see exactly what you mean, my friend might go out and have her eyes done, for instance, and it might not work. And she might end up being one of those people you read about in tabloids who end up in a court suing the plastic surgeon because she can never open her eyes again. Furthermore, and this is the point, it would be my fault. I'm particularly sensitive to the all my fault aspect of things, since I have never forgiven one of my friends for telling me not to buy a perfectly good apartment on East 75th Street in 1976. Sometimes I go to lunch with my girlfriends. I got that far into the sentence and caught myself. I suppose I mean my women friends. We're no longer girls and have not been for 40 years. Anyway, sometimes we go to lunch and I look around the table and realize we're all wearing turtleneck sweaters. Sometimes instead we're all wearing scarves, like Katharine Hepburn in On Golden Pond. Sometimes we're all wearing mandarin collars and look like a white lady's version of the Joy Luck Club. It's part of it's sort of funny and it's sort of sad because we're not neurotic about our age. None of us lies about how old she is, and none of us dress in a way that's inappropriate for our years. We all look good for our age, except for our necks. Oh, the neck. There are chicken necks, there are turkey gobbler necks, there are elephant necks, there are necks with waddles, and necks with creases that are going to be waddles. There are scrawny necks, fat necks, loose necks, crepey necks, banded necks, wrinkled necks, stringy necks, saggy necks, flabby necks, mottled necks. There are necks that are an amazing combination of all the above. According to my dermatologist, the neck starts to go at 43, and that's that. You can put makeup on your face and concealer under your eyes, and you can dye your hair. You can shoot collagen and Botox into your wrinkles and your creases. But short of surgery, there's not a damn thing you can do about a neck. The neck is a dead giveaway. Our faces are lies. Our necks are the truth. You have to cut open a redwood tree to see how old it is, but you wouldn't have to if it had a neck. My own experience with my neck began shortly before I turned 43. I had an operation that left me with a terrible scar just above the collarbone. It was shocking because I learned the hard way that just because a doctor was a famous surgeon didn't mean he knew how to sew up a person. If you learn nothing else from reading this essay, dear reader, learn this. Never have an operation on any part of your body without asking a plastic surgeon to come stand by in the operating room and keep an eye out. Because even if you're being operated on for something serious or potentially serious, even if you honestly believe that your health is more important than vanity, even if you wake up in the hospital room thrilled beyond imagining that it wasn't cancer, even if you feel elated, grateful to be alive, full of blinding insights about what's important and what is not, even if you vow to be eternally joyful about being on the planet Earth and promise never to complain about anything ever again, I promise you that one day soon, sooner than you can imagine, you will look in the mirror and think, I hate this scar. Assuming, of course, that you look in the mirror. There's another thing about being a certain age that I've noticed. I try as much as possible not to look in the mirror. If I pass a mirror, I avert my eyes. If I must look into it, I begin squinting so that if anything really bad is looking back at me, I'm already halfway closing my eyes to ward off the sight. And if the light is good, which I hope it isn't, I often do what so many women my age do when stuck in front of a mirror. I gently pull the skin of my neck back and stare wistfully at a younger version of myself. There's something else I've noticed, by the way. If you want to get really, really depressed about your neck, sit in the back seat of a car right behind the driver and look at yourself in the rear view mirror. What is it with rear view mirrors? I look at, what if, I have no idea why, but there are no worse mirrors where necks are concerned. It's one of the genuinely compelling mysteries of modern life, right up there with why the cold water is colder in the bathroom than it is in the kitchen. But my neck. This is about my neck, and I know what you're thinking. Why not go to a plastic surgeon? I'll tell you why not. If you go to a plastic surgeon and say, I'd like you to just fix my neck, he will tell you flat out that he can't do it without giving you a facelift too. And he's not lying. He's not trying to con you into spending more money. The fact is, it's all one big ball of wax. If you tighten up the neck, you've got to tighten up the face. But I don't want a facelift. If I were a muffin and had a nice round puffy face, I would bite the bullet. Muffins are perfect candidates for that sort of thing. But I am, alas, a bird. If I had a facelift, my neck would be improved, no question. But my face would end up pulled and tight. I would rather squint at this sorry neck and face of mine in the mirror than confront a stranger who looks suspiciously like a drum pad. Ever so often, I read a book about age, and whoever's writing it it's great to be old. It's great to be wise and sage and mellow. It's great to the point where you understand just what everything in life is all about. I can't stand people who say things like that. What can they be thinking? Don't they have necks? Aren't they tired of dressings? You can't buy dresses with without considering the neckline. And you have to buy chokers. One of the biggest regrets, bigger than not buying that apartment on East 75th Street, even bigger, my worst romantic catastrophe is that I didn't spend my youth staring lovingly at my neck. It never crossed my mind to be grateful for it. It never crossed my mind that I would be nostalgic about a part of my body that I took completely for granted. Of course, it's true that now I am older. I'm wiser, sage, and mellow. And it's also true that I honestly do understand just what matters in life. But guess what? It's my neck. Thank you. Thank you. Big noise.